found I really enjoyed rolling. I really enjoyed pushing myself. I do enjoy, the competition of a rowing race. There's not many things as an adult that you get nervous about,
Yep.
but when you're sitting up on the line and you're in the championship race and there's, 10, 15,000 people
Yep.
surrounding that bull at the bottom of Kitty Lake and they start going like, are you ready number one? Are you ready number two? You're like, there's no better, like it's the level of like adrenaline that's pumping through your veins for that like 10 seconds is like just it's the greatest. And then you're off and you're racing. And then, within 2 minutes, you're like, I'm gonna die. There's no way I'm gonna make it back up this time.
Welcome to the Fit Leaders Talks podcast, a show dedicated to business leaders and entrepreneurs looking to level up their mindset and fitness to thrive in biz and life. My name is Ryan Osborne, aka Coach Oz, and this is the place to hear truly inspirational stories from other successful business leaders from all industries share their struggle to strength fitness journeys while getting an inside scoop on exactly how these high achievers manage their fitness and busy schedule that has produced a 10x impact within their biz and personal growth. My purpose is to uncover transformational fitness stories from local to well-known people with my mission of empowering 10,000 business leaders to become fit leaders. Welcome to Fit Leaders Talks. Hey folks, Ryan Osborne back, aka Coach Oz, with another episode of Fit Leaders Talks, and super happy and excited to take a small portion of this guy's busy schedule. Eddie Sheerr, most of you probably at least on the local scene in here in Newfoundland, at least would certainly know Eddie, and me and Eddie has been able to build a nice working relationship over the past few months. And he's been gracious to hop on this show. And I really think that he's got a very interesting story to tell. And like so many of the people that I do speak with, fitness hasn't been just, hey, come easy. Even though he values fitness, obviously, and has been active for the majority of, I'll say, his life, young life. Clearly, with kids, with school, and other aspects, he's gone through the battles of motivation, up and down on fitness and whatnot. So, but there's also some unique aspects to his fitness, and we'll certainly touch a base on that. So, Eddie, very again appreciative of your time, and just say hello to the gang.
My pleasure for being here. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
All right. So yeah, so really, and Eddie, for those that do not know, Eddie Sheerr is the chief meteorologist for NTV News here in St. John's, Newfoundland. He is originally from Pennsylvania, the States, and he moved up here, I believe, in around 2013. But again, high social life, obviously, front and center with the camera. But his daughter, how old? What's she?
Emily's going to be 2 on Saturday, on the
Two on
15th.
Saturday. All
Yeah.
right, and of course, Eddie competitively rode in the well, basically road period. I know you have various regattas
Yeah.
around the Avalon and that, but he was a competitive rower on a one of the top tier teams, and we'll just kind of quickly touch on that as well, and just kind of where he got his competitive drive from, and then kind of obviously the pandemic shift to kind of why he felt that he was ready mentally and why he felt he needed to reach out to a coach. But let's just start, Eddie, just kind of, I know you said like pretty much active, let's just say childhood, from an adolescence standpoint, but was that bug kind of from a family thing, or just you like to be active? It was just kind of something innate.
Um, I've just always liked to be active. Like as a kid, I remember I really enjoyed being outside. Um, when I was in high school and middle school, we were playing roller hockey or street hockey like every day after school for hours and hours. And when it was raining, we'd go inside, we'd play like knee hockey or something in the basement. Like,
Yeah.
my brother and, who's like 2.5 years younger than me and a couple of buddies. And really, I was active as a young kid, playing baseball and, not so much soccer, but baseball and some other sports like that. And through high school, like I was saying, like a lot of like street hockey and roller hockey and stuff like that. I was always moving a lot as a kid.
Yeah, I guess. And like Dan, I'm always curious to know, especially because I've spoke to people on this podcast already. I'm just curious, like, in Pennsylvania, um, I guess so. It's like baseball, I guess football. Like, were those the kind of the big ones? Or I know you said
Yeah,
like,
like I went to summer camp, overnight camp from when I was like probably 13 to like
yeah,
16 or 17, and we would do athletics all summer, and it was
okay,
at baseball, golf, frisbee,
wide
ultimate
range.
frisbee, touch football, softball, soccer, which I'm terrible at, but it was the run of the mill kind of normal athletics type stuff.
Okay, cool, cool. Okay, so then, all right, where you were super active, lean guy. Of course, food habits just, hey, you got away with it, right? There wasn't
Yeah.
really any rhyme or reason. It was just, I can overeat, or I can at least just eat what I want. Let's just say, not necessarily overeat, but basically kind of eat what you want.
Mm.
And again, it didn't kind of impede. You didn't see any sort of physical changes. But then we get into the university years.
Yeah.
And so movement for many people, let's just say, unless you're there on a athletic scholarship, if you will, but for so many people, I'll say, including myself,
Yeah.
movement goes drastically down, and
Yeah.
food habits, if not stay the same, maybe get way worse because you're on a lower budget. And
Yeah.
I know in your case, just talk about that. Like, so you had a meal plan because you lived on residence, and
Yeah.
where did things kind of go there?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think in Canada they call it like first year, second year, third year, fourth year, but in the US it's like freshman, sophomore,
Yeah,
junior, senior. They call it the freshman 15. You go to
15.
college, you gain your 15 pounds, and that's pretty much what happened. Like I went to university, my activity level went way down. I had like fewer friends, not as much activity. I probably wasn't as social as I maybe should have been, and I had a meal plan. And because, like you mentioned, I never really had to worry about diet. Like I would go to the cafeteria and I would have breakfast. I would have, eggs and toast and a bowl of cereal and a cup of hot chocolate. And I'd go for lunch and I have three plates of fries and a sandwich and, some fried chicken and ice cream and cereal. And I go to supper and I, eat whatever I wanted really, because it wasn't something I needed to be concerned about, or so I thought. And within a couple of months, I needed new pants. So that was the beginning of my university years.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of went through there. And then you pretty much, I think it was either during your, I'm not sure exact the time period, but you had a pal, a friend who
Yeah.
kind of got you into the gym, if you will. So just kind of, that was your first, I
Mm.
believe, I guess, experience with
It was
weights
my
and stuff like
first
that.
real experience like lifting on a regular basis, like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday thing, or Monday,
Yep.
Wednesday, Friday. We would go, splitting everything up: upper body, lower body, legs, back, blah blah blah, chest, all that stuff. So I had a roommate who was he was big fella, or not big fella. He's my height, but he was in shape.
Yep.
And I also had a girl who I was trying to impress at the time as well. And so I had between having him as a resource and the motivation to say, okay, like I know like what this girl's boyfriend looks like. I don't look like him. Like how do I look like that?
Yep.
And so I started going to the gym and I started working out and I started losing weight and I started gaining confidence and feeling better about myself. And over the run of a year, I transformed from somebody who was doing nothing to somebody who was in the gym 3, 4, 5 days a week, either
Yep.
early or before lunches or between classes, or became almost like a gym rat. It's really how I learned to lift weights,
Okay.
was with him my third year. And then my fourth year I had another roommate who was he was a big fella, and
Yeah.
I started training with him as
So you
well.
came in the through. So then, right? So you,
Yeah.
you get that bug, and you're coming out of, I guess, university at that point.
Yeah.
But I like so many, I guess, just finding your wings, starting your career, and then kind of just, so you, like you said, you kind of really, did you have a goal coming out of university? So let's just like
Mm.
really hit that spot there. So mid-20s potentially.
Right.
I know up until your early 30s when things, really kind of took a big advancement there, at least from a consistency. But just that mid to late 20s, was
Mm.
there any goal?
Um, I don't particularly think there was a goal other than like I just knew I didn't want to get back to the weight I was before I lost weight and gained muscle in university,
Yeah.
which was closing in on 180 pounds. I'm 5'7". When I weigh 180 pounds, it's not a good looking 180 pounds, right?
No.
Like I don't hold the weight in good areas.
No.
So
Yeah.
I was just trying to really just maintain some level of fitness from university,
Hmm.
which as I got out of university and started working, I found that to be more of a challenge, because you have your social life. My work hours were a bit odd. you know Gym membership's relatively expensive. I didn't have the the advantage of having a buddy who knew more than me. So,
Yep.
I try and get trainers, and trainers are expensive.
Yep.
And so that really didn't work out. And that's kind of where, like, the roller coaster would start, where I'd be, getting in shape and eating decently and watching what I eat. And then, I kind of fall off. And then, and I was moving around, from Georgia, where I had my first job, to Colorado, where I had my second job. And my second job was more, it was like, I really liked the people I work with, and we had a really big social life. We go out quite a bit. So obviously gym time kind of took a bit of a tumble. And so, I've been in this roller coaster with fitness and kind of diet, more so fitness, like you said, going back to like my early 20s.
Yeah. And you probably find that, as I'll say, that the path of least resistance, right, is focusing on fitness, especially now. Like it's what you like to do, but it's,
Yeah.
for some people, they only exercise because it's kind of a means to a goal. And they sometimes find food is easier to manage than, say, having to work out. But it certainly seems like the exercise to you is, as long as that is pretty well
Yeah.
consistent, that then the food and your kind of probably your motivation is more optimal. Would you say that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's optimum,
Not
maybe not
optimal,
the
but at
best
least you're probably
best
in a better
term.
place mentally if you're working out more regularly. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, and I have picked up a few tips from my brother. Has battled a little bit of weight issues too, like through his life. And even though we're very different in how we approach things, I have learned some things from him, because he manages it quite well with, tracking your food. So I
Yep.
think when I was in like my late 20s, I started using my fitness pal to like watch my food.
Yep.
And what I find is, the more I'm, into fitness, and the more I'm working out, the more motivated I am to log
To
my
do that.
food. And, the less I'm working out, the worse I feel about, myself subconsciously, and self-esteem wise, the less I'm going to track my food.
Yep.
And
Okay.
so I find, like, the harder I'm working out, the more I track my food, the better the results I see. But, for some reason over the years, like, the motivation kind of falls away, and whatever peak I was at, I go down to a similar kind of valley.
Yeah. And can you just like place any sort of thought on that of why the roller coaster really is what it is? Is it just an interest? Is it kind of,
I
you know,
I I wish I did. Like, I don't know if it's like just like a motivation thing. I think maybe I get to a point and I get like a little too complacent.
yep.
And it's like, okay, like, here's where I am, like, I'm at a good weight, like, I can start to slip a little bit, I can eat, maybe McDonald's twice a week instead of once every other week, or instead
Mhm.
of once a month.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, you know weight starts coming back up, but, it's only a pound or two, no big deal, like, I'll get that off.
Yeah.
And, and the next thing you know, it's 5 or 10 pounds. And what you find is, like, when you're working out, like, you're feeling good, it doesn't seem that hard. But when you're out of it and you're trying to get back into it, you
Oh,
forget kind of how hard it is to get back
you
into
you
that
you
that
quit.
mental
Why
state.
did I just take a, sometimes like a super, and the older you get, you kind of really feel it fast.
Right.
A month off, when you're much older is a bit different back then, but you always question, why did I just take that time period off? Because it feels like you're doing things twice as hard when you used to be able to do it. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, it's like why, maybe instead of just like going back down, I guess, the valley, like, why didn't I just plateau and stay there and look after myself, and not have to be in this position I'm in right now, where I'm not feeling good about
Yeah.
how my jeans are fitting, or how my suit is fitting, or how I look, or
Eh, Yeah, and I think like with Eddie too, I think like having, I guess, I'll just say kind of the goal after the goal, right? And I'm not saying that that has to be like super specific and you're robotic constantly, and it's all absolutely fine to have downtime where you're not focusing. You don't have to be, again, so rigid. However, that's what so many people kind of do, right? And those that might be very goal oriented in their career, but yet when it comes to their health and fitness, is they have a goal and then pretty much they get close to it or they stop, but then there's nothing else beyond that. Okay, so I think from the time period on that, it's just, yeah, it's just sometimes being a little bit strategic to say, okay, what can I set, now that I'm getting close to a goal, what's something that's maybe more close to you, but it has to be meaningful. Okay, Eddie, so now I know you said you did a camp kind of mid-teens, from a
Mhm.
competitive nature. So now as we get into the early 30s,
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you necessarily were located then, but at least just that start of, you know what, let's see what I can, I guess, do outside of just some personal, stay in shape, do some gym
Mhm.
stuff like that. Then you got in obviously to the competitive nature with the rowing. So yeah, where did that start? Talk about the camp and then that
Well,
transition.
I mean, going back to my early 30s, like I did train for a sprint triathlon
Okay.
because I was at a similar point where I was like, okay, like I'm not feeling too good about myself. Like, what can I do? And I was like, I'll do it. I'll do a triathlon. Like, I'll try that. So I trained for that. And again, same thing happened. Got in real good shape, got through the triathlon, did well, and then kind of fell off again. But I did find at that point, like I was reasonably competitive. And over my life, like I've I guess seen like looking back, seen like glimpses of being competitive. Like you said, like going back to when I went to overnight camp and we had like athletics, and I didn't like losing, but I didn't really like put two and two together that like I'm overly competitive.
Yes.
And I guess when it comes to like in my early 30s, I moved here. I saw rowing on the lake, in Kitty Lake, and I was like, I'd like to try that. How hard could it be? Turns out it's really, really friggin' hard. Um, Depending on how far you want to take it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I found I really enjoyed rowing. I really enjoyed pushing myself. I do enjoy, the competition of a rowing race. There's not many things as an adult that you get nervous about.
Yep.
But when you're sitting up on the line and you're in the championship race and there's 10 15,000 people
Yep.
surrounding that bowl at the bottom of Kitty Lake, and they start going like, are you rated number one, are you rated number two, you're like, there's no better, like it's the level of like adrenaline that's pumping through your veins for that like 10 seconds is like just, it's the greatest. And then you're off and you're racing, and then within 2 minutes you're like, I'm gonna die, there's no way I'm gonna make it back up this pond. And no matter how many times you race, like that is the
That's
thought
what
that
keeps
goes.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. And
You,
so
you
like
go
when
on
you're
the you
training
go on
on
the
the
frozen
machine,
pond almost in I guess April or May because you want that.
yeah, because you want that feeling, right? You want to be up there and you want everybody to be looking at you, and when it came to me, like I felt pressure because I didn't want to look like a hood ornament, right? Like I didn't want to be, just here's Eddie Sheer rolling with the NTV crew, and he's only there
Yeah.
because he's the weatherman. But no, like I earned my place on the
You
crew.
didn't. Yep.
I work very very hard. I don't know if people understand like how much effort I do, and I really did, because this year not quite so much. It's not rowing as a regular, but going back to 2019, how much work like there was involved in rowing. Like it's a sacrifice to the family. I wasn't seeing Susan as much because we were getting up and I was rowing hour and a half pieces in the morning, and then we were on the pond for an hour at night, and this was from May to August.
Yep.
And so rowing became a big part of my life as I got more involved in it and got more, I guess, more so fell in love with the sport, because it
Yep.
really is. It's a fantastic sport to get into.
Yeah, because I
when
think, like you said, I mean, whether viewers are aware of how big certainly rowing is here in Newfoundland and on the Avalon. The Royal St. John's Regatta, which now is over its 200th year, correct?
Yeah, I think this
Right.
is going to be the
It technically is
202nd.
the oldest, right? There, I think that
Yeah,
has been confirmed, correct?
it's technically, it hasn't been like a consistent running 200 years, because there have been
No,
breaks
but
like we saw. But yeah, it's well, I think it is the longest running sporting event in North America, or
in North
so
America, folks.
or
So
so we're
just
told.
just understand that the longest
Yeah,
running sporting event
yeah,
in North America.
yeah,
Newfoundland, yes, small East Coast island on Canada. That those that may come across this from various means. Rowing is big here, and the
yeah,
commitment for those. It's kind of the bubble within the bubble. I have had both friends, but also clients that have done the female rowing teams in that, and until you're kind of in it and understanding that really, like I know Eddie, you said off camera that the training truly starts in November, but when you're
yeah,
basically, as soon as the ice leaves the lake here in St. John's, that you get up like crazy early and you put forth those super cold mornings, and you're pushing hard. And so, but like you said, obviously the competitiveness here,
mm.
the prestige of it, you've got a few races that lead up to the actual race itself. But it's funny, like I guess rowing, I get like speaking to fit like in Pennsylvania, is that like just I know this is off topic, but like is there rowing at all where you kind
There
of grew
is
up?
there is rowing, like in Philadelphia. Like there's a prestigious rowing area on the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia. You have like
Okay.
Princeton University, which is like really big into rowing.
Yep.
But I never really thought it was a sport I'd get into.
Yes.
Until I came here and I saw people rowing on the lake, and I was like, oh, that looks like I kind of want to try that.
So that was my question was, I know, like,
Yeah.
just to confirm basically what you just said. So it was kind of like you watched, you seen, and like, can I do that? But
Yeah.
um, who gave, I mean, I understand, yes, NDB had the boat, but what was it? Was it just kind of like, hey guys, did you start training to kind of say, hey,
No.
now I'm interested? Or how did that work for you to get on the
So
boat?
I've rowed, I think, for like this is I think my sixth. Now I'm not full time at this point
Yeah, I
just
got
because
that. Yeah.
my focus is different. More trying to be more of a family, more of a dad than a rower at this point because I can't do both. But both to the ability I need to, to the
Yes.
ability that
You need to be
Emily and
full on,
Julie
right? Yeah.
to the crew needs me. So something had to give. But going back to which I think my first regatta I think I saw was 2014, and I know a couple of the guys at work who have rowed in the past, and I think early in the year I was like, well, I was like, let's put a team in, and they're like, no, you don't understand. Like it's we need 6 people who are going to be committed, who are going to want to do this regularly because of you know we have a slot booked, and someone's not committed, and 5 show up and not 6, we can't row.
Yep. Okay.
And so I had another friend who I think was interested in it. So 2015, we put a crew together, and we rowed, and we really enjoyed it. And so that was year 1. Year 2, we took it to a bit of a different level, but we didn't really train as much. Year 1 was a learning year. You're learning how to row, you're learning how to move the boat. Year 2 was kind of the same thing, learning how to row, learning how to move the boat a little bit. It was when we got to year 3, 4, and 5, we started to we started to get a little more competitive. We started to really try and get people who were committed and who were going to train, not so much in, May, but you look at like the Cadigans, like,
Yep.
James and Dan Cadigan and Outer Cove and that whole crew, and Crosby Industrial, the guys who set their record, which is, their record is really, really fast. It's actually, it's when you've rowed like as fast as we can row, which is like a 9:26, and they rode an 8:51 during their second race of the day on that lake. It's just it's unbelievable how fast those guys were. So you're looking at crews like that and you're saying, okay, like they look really good, they're strong. Like, how do we go that fast?
Yep.
How do we get as fast as them? And so then we started to put a little more into it, more off-season training. We hired a strength coach a couple of years
Yep.
ago, and we started to start training instead of in like April. We started training in November
Yep.
or October, in the weights, and started erging in January.
Yep.
And so the last couple of years was like we were doing 200,000 meters a month
Wicked man.
on the rowing machine from like January to April.
Yep.
And so when you start getting to that level, you're taking rowing from an amateur sport to almost like a varsity level college time commitment.
Yep.
And so that's what life was like in the summer for the last couple of years, excluding the pandemic coming in and kind of ruining it all.
Yes.
And your goal is to win a championship, and it's really a shame because last year I think it's hard to win a championship when you have Dan and James Cadigan rowing, because they're and all the other guys that row with them, right? They're part of a very elite rowing crew.
Yes.
And when they're rowing, like they're fast, they're hard to beat, like not almost impossible. Like if because we're smaller than they are, we have less experience, but we're still faster.
Yep.
But they weren't going to row last summer, right? That was a rumor. They weren't going to roll last summer. So we were
so the window was there,
right? Because we knew we could taste the championship, and that is what your goal is as a rower. Like every single rower wants a championship so bad, and that's what NTV wanted, and that's what we want.
Oh,
right?
I bet.
We were like, we could taste it, and then
pandemic
it got
in,
taken away, and so.
So curious though. I mean, obviously every sport has an off season, but just mentally, let alone physically, right? I believe because the regatta is the last race of the season, correct?
Yeah.
I know there's, however, anyway.
Yeah, you got Placentia, Harbor Grace, and St. John's.
That's what I mean. Okay, so it was the 3. That's correct. I thought there was 3. So August comes, and just again, regardless of maybe your outcome. But what happens kind of even, this is just for people that may not be necessarily in it, like August to September. And that, I mean, obviously if the next season is coming up, then you'll take those few months off to recover. But it must be like,
it's it's
You
so
detract
like
yourself from fitness like altogether.
so basically that's what I did. Like my last year rowing was my the last stroke I pulled until like, last week when I was rowing with the boys as a spare, was, the last stroke Regatta Day 2019. Like,
Yeah.
we're going off and I stopped rowing. Not we, well, the gun didn't go off for us. We didn't win. Aberco did. But we crossed the line and, Dean, our coxswain, let it run. That was the last stroke I pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you're just mentally, you kind of had enough. Like,
Yeah.
it's enough. It's enough now. Like, we've been erging, 4 days a week. We've been rowing 6 days a week since May. We've been rowing on the machines and lifting weights. Just going back to November. So that was, it was like time to take a break.
Yes, you would.
And
You
I
would.
really good physical shape at that point. Like, I think I was like 150, 159 pounds, lightest I've
Yeah.
been in probably since like I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And same thing happened. Like, pound here, pound there, pound here, pound there. Christmas came, 5 pounds came on. And, and then last year I was like, okay, like I got a bit of weight on, but, we're going to row in the pond again. We're going to be doing 2 a days. Like, I'll get
Yeah,
that
exactly.
up. I'll slim down some. Summer never came because there was no regatta. So, and that's kind of where you came in for me, like this year, is because, I'm not rowing, as much as I can't row anymore. Like, as much as I'd like to, I can't give the guys what they need.
Yeah.
I want to be, more of a dad. So, there had to be a bit of give and take. And I knew that, if I was to get back into some physical shape, like, it wasn't going to be the motivation of rowing that was going to do it.
Yes.
And I need to make like a wholesale change in like my activity, my nutrition, my diet, because I really don't know how to eat well, and just try and get things back on track from going off the rails, because I was kind of on like a precipice of like going to a spot I didn't want to go, where I could still kind of go back down the ladder if I really put some work into it, which I know how to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And obviously, like, that's the thing too. I mean, obviously you had a really, I'll say performance coach over the last 6, 7 years for
Mm.
sure. And so having the kind of the guidance there, and some people can be internally motivated and they know what to do. And it's just a little bit of an extra level of accountability. Your viewpoint on having a coach, like in general, like, just a quick word on like coach at all, right? Like, what would you say kind of to those that, have just been, maybe never had a coach before, but why do you
Well,
feel you value that level of, I guess, guidance and accountability?
I've had trainers over the years, and I've tried to go it alone, and I can kind of like, you can liken it to like walking in a forest, if you will. I mean, it might sound like a dumb analogy, but like, you know, kind of where you're going, but at the same point, like, you're kind of just like meandering about. You don't have like a path.
Mm.
And, when it came to where I was, I felt like I was kind of like, okay, like, I know what I need to do to get out of here, but like, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I reached out to you, because I won't say lost, because I wasn't really lost. Like, I know
No.
enough about how to be active and
Yeah.
fit to like
Yeah.
get in the right mindset. But like, having a coach helps your accountability. You can be guided on nutrition, guided on workouts, because workouts are, you know, the variables are infinite. Like, you can go to the gym and you can do the same thing 10 different ways.
Yes.
What's the best way to do it? Like, how am I going to get results?
Yep.
Do I have to go to the gym for an hour? Can I get the same workout in 40 minutes? Like, how much cardio do I need to do? Like, these are all things that, like, I don't know the answers to. Like,
Mm.
I'm not a trainer. I'm not
No,
a
no, no, no.
kinesiologist. Like, that's where you come in, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's where your expertise is. Like, I know a lot about weather. I don't know a lot about fitness.
Yeah. That's
I know how,
what, like, people when they,
I have the ability, like, I know how to push myself in the
yes.
gym, but I don't know how to, like, necessarily the best plan to go forward.
Yeah. And I say that, like, the people, like, no matter what they call it, an expert, like obviously an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, a mechanic, it's the same concept. Like, you might be a jack of all trades, or someone that could do YouTube now obviously allows people to just find out whatever the Jesus they can find. And obviously there's so much free information on fitness. I mean, if anything, it's
Yeah.
probably the industry that has the most information, obviously quite conflicting, but
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the reality that you kind of want a little bit of personalization, one, because of
Right.
course everybody is different. But also the level of, I'll just say, certainty, right? Where you're kind of like, okay, like, it takes the guesswork out. Like, who doesn't want to, like, who loves taxes? If you're not, I wouldn't imagine most accountants don't really like them either, but it's second nature versus you having to compile it and do all the, the guesswork in that. So
Right.
I get that. Okay. So let's just talk about, as I usually like to kind of finish off with these, is just, kind of taking a little bit of a backstage look into your fitness regime, but kind of focal point being on just one aspect, one thing, a part of your routine that you feel just kind of shapes up your day/week. And I know
Mhm.
you talked about kind of why you've really kind of just taken a more consistent focus, and a bigger emphasis on your morning. And so
Yeah,
just talk about what your morning routine does look like. Because I know you said with your wife where she works 7:30, you don't go in until 11. So you've
right,
got to take your 2-year-old and kind of just do the daddy job there. So
right.
I know, but just basically, what do you do? And also, why is it working for you?
Well, I've read and I've heard from multiple people that people who are successful get up early, and getting up early isn't 7 o'clock. Getting up early is 5 or 5:30. And so in the last few months, probably leading up to March, I was getting up late. I would get up when Emily got up. It's not late, but it's not exactly early. And to make the change I wanted to make to get more active, I said, you know what, like this is what I got to do. If I want to run, if I want to row, if I want to do anything that I can do before my daughter wakes up, I got to get up at 5:30, got to have my coffee, got to be downstairs working out between 6 and 7.
Yep.
And so I've tried to, I made it a goal of mine after hearing an interview with our premier Andrew Fury, who I know him on a personal level, and somebody I look up to, and he mentioned that he works out 5 6 days a week in the morning early, gets his day started, it helps keep him focused.
Yep.
Somebody who's a surgeon and now the premier, having mental clarity is huge.
Massive.
And so I was like, you know what, like that's a good example. I'm gonna try that. So basically since March, I've been getting up early, 5:30, 6 o'clock. I've been doing my hour rows or doing running on the treadmill or doing a hit workout. Anything to kind of get the day started off on a good foot, get some energy out. That way, when Emily gets up, between 7 and 7:15 or 7:30, like I'm awake, I'm ready to get her going. Like I get her out of bed. Like I'm not like groggy daddy.
Yeah,
I'm like
groggy
ready
or
to
rushed.
go.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I get her, so she gets, so I'm up with her, and I try and do like a work Facebook post sometimes before she gets up, maybe even before I work out. And then she's up, and I'm looking after her, getting her ready, giving her breakfast, spending some dad time with her, because I get her off to daycare 9 9:30, and then Susan picks her up at 5, and a lot of times she's going to bed by the time I get home
By the
at
time you
7
get home. So
7:30 in the
that's
evening.
that's your daddy
Right,
daughter time.
right. That's my daddy daughter time, is in the morning. So that's kind of how my day looks now. Like
Yep.
I get up quite early, but I enjoy it. Like I
Yeah.
enjoy getting up early. Like it's something like I didn't really like, but now, like as I've been doing it now for a couple of months
Yep.
consistently, like my head pops off the pillow now 5:15, 5:30, and I'm like
Boom.
ready to go. Like
Wicked. Okay. Awesome. Well, no, I mean, and like you said, no doubt from besides like you talked about the mental clarity, but just even that little bit more health consciousness, with respects to some of your eating habits, like just as the day goes on. Like I tell
mm,
people that like it doesn't matter like duration necessarily, and obviously the nuts and bolts. Let's just kind of look at it for those that are starting out. But I'm like, if you can do something morning wise, again, not it could be different depending on your work schedule,
mhm.
but enough that you know it just gives you that sense that you have to reverse engineer it, and obviously it's going to probably focus on getting better sleep because you have to go to bed early, right?
Yeah.
So it can build
And,
in habits,
and
even
you're tired by
indirectly.
by 9 o'clock too.
You're what?
9 o'clock comes and I'm tired. Like I'm ready to
Yeah,
go to bed at
and
9
exactly, but
30
you're
too. Like
tired. See,
yeah.
versus right, people are stressed, anger, depending on what they're
Mhm.
watching and social. They're so ramped up. Sports, like you're ramped up, and then of course you try to lie in bed at like 12, and you're like this, and then let alone, and then you're feeling number one, you're not motivated, you don't have
Yeah.
the energy, and then you feel like, oh my god, the day's going out of me. When am I going to find time to work out? I'm like, no matter what, you absolutely have a crap ton of time to work out, but it
You
goes
have to
by those habits
you've got
that
to
obviously seek you
find
up.
you've got to find the time is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Like and as
15
a
or an
dad,
hour.
like that's my time. My time is before Emily wakes up. If I don't get it done before
Yeah,
then, like even on a Saturday, like Saturdays are, our days home as a family. I'll get up at 5:30. I'll do workout between 6 and 7, because if I don't do it, it
it's not
probably
going to
ain't
get
gonna
in.
happen. Because like I'm tired, Emily goes for a nap at 2 o'clock. I'm tired at 2 o'clock. Like I want to go for a nap at 2 o'clock.
Yeah,
So if I don't
yeah,
get up early and first thing and get it done and over with,
yeah,
but it also like it does give me like mental sharpness, mental clarity, and I'm somebody that does battle with a bit of anxiety.
Okay.
And I find the more active I am, especially when it comes to cardio and weightlifting too, when it comes to cardio and really pushing myself, that really quells any anxiety. Like it's not something I battle with. But when, you know, my physical activity goes down, anxiety starts to creep back up a little bit. And
Wow.
so I find it's a good way to keep it all balanced and keep myself in check.
That's great. Appreciate that, Sheerr, Eddie. That's, it's very commonplace for those that are obviously battling, pandemic or not. But I do think that, this is where that whole, just that physical exertion versus mental resiliency, that connection is there. And some people, they don't necessarily give it justice. They might try it for a little tiny bit, but I'm like, just find something that is, that could mean an outdoor walk for some people. It might be a spin class. It might be a strength lifting session. For me, it's certainly a bit more strength oriented in terms of just helping to calm or just kind of get me clear. Or basketball, because I come up more of a sport and I'm a team oriented guy versus say like a runner. But I value that and I see the connection there. And so I love the fact that that's your non-negotiable is the morning. And I say, like, you've got to choose your sacrifice, what that's going to be. Right.
Yeah.
And clearly to have daddy-daughter time, which is like clearly why we do all this for,
There's
you've
only
got
going
to
to
look
be
at your
two once.
schedule,
Like,
and without doing it,
right.
that's going to just trickle into being a negative effect on other aspects. So
Right.
cool stuff. I do want to appreciate your time, Eddie. Really do. And just being able to share some of those kind of background stories, and obviously as though we talked about is appreciate putting the trust in me in trying to get you back to a dad machine.
Yeah, well, like I want to be, as Emily gets older and we have a second on the way, due in October, as
Right, that's
it's
right.
so yeah, my life's like a tsunami right now. The water's just kind of going out.
I forgot
Waiting for
about
it to
that.
come back in.
That's right.
When the baby comes. But as my kids get older, like I don't want to be unable to play with them in my
No.
40s, right? Like I want to be
Yep.
running around playing tag with them when they're 5, 10 years old. And
Yep.
and if I don't stay active, that's going to hurt a lot more than it will if I remain active. And maybe my age as I'm 45, 37 now, or 36. Maybe my age is saying 44, but I might feel like I'm 35 or 36.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
that's the goal for me going forward. That's my motivation now.
That's your
Is to like,
motivation.
okay, like what's my long-term game here? It's no longer a short term. It's like I got to stay
No,
active,
long-term vision.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that actually, I was going to finish with what's kind of like your definition of fitness and what's your why about kind of moving forward, but literally you just perfect. You just answered it. So, and I,
no, it's just like the day-to-day motivation is the hard part in that regard, right?
it will,
That's the long-term
listen,
goal.
myself, even athletic, like people that are like super competitive, it's just, and it's been like long a part of their routine. Like you're going to have the mornings, like it doesn't matter because it's physical exertion, and the process doesn't necessarily get easier again depending on your goal, right? If you're just starting out, yeah, that's challenging, but also if you've been doing things for a long term and you kind of got to take things either to the next level, then that's still a lot of work. Like there's
Right.
no shortcut, right? And but as we all know, the post-workout effect and also just feeling and seeing the fruits of your labor, it's priceless, right? It's absolutely priceless.
It's
So you
great.
do it for these other tangible benefits, because if it's only for one small little look, you're going to look at yourself and be like, hey, good for me. But then that quickly diminishes. So whether you're a family person, a business oriented guy, competitive in nature, you got to have those things that kind of do get you out of your bed. Right. And that just keeps things, best suitable for consistency, which is key. And again, Fit Leader, as I say, folks, with these, it's not about speaking to, leaders in fitness. It's just literally leaders in business life and social life, just kind of finding their way. And I just wanted to bring about another person's story, and hopefully that impacts any of you listeners in the most positive way forward. So again, Eddie, appreciate your time. Hey, did this podcast resonate with you? Did you get any value from it? If you did, then I got one more little favor to ask of you. If you could kindly hit the subscribe or follow button, depending on where you're listening to this podcast to, and leave a 5-star rating and leave a little review, I'd be forever grateful. Truly, truly, truly. I appreciate that. Until next time, leaders, talk soon.